Thank you, everybody, for joining us in another session as part of Career Development Week. My name is Aisha Gore. I manage Career Services, and I'm very happy to be able to welcome Dr. Lauren Hill with us today. We'll be discussing the importance of connecting and expanding your network through professional associations with an engaging session entitled Professional Associations 101. The session will be recorded. If you have any questions, feel free to use the chat feature, or we can certainly unmute you. All attendees will be in mute mode for sort of the portion of the session. Thank you, Dr. Hill, for joining us. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to you. Let me know how I can assist you throughout the session to kind of transition with slides.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for attending the session today. And today, I want to give an overview of professional associations and why they're particularly beneficial for graduate students. So let's move to the next slide. Thank you. So I think that when you're accepted into graduate school, you should have someone to greet you that says, "Congratulations, you're a graduate student," and then they should follow that up with, "And here's some things that you can expect to have happen." Some of these things involve role transition. Some students may be coming from undergraduate programs directly into graduate programs. Other students may have been out of school for a while. So students return in different forms, and based on those forms of coming into graduate school, you have different types of role transition. Along with this role transition, regardless of where you are, you will have some sort of role strain. And this is a concept that we're familiar with in the field of psychology because we all know that we have multiple roles that we play in our life. Whether that's a role that we play in our family life, whether it's a role that we play in our work life, whether it's a role that we play in student. So how we balance these different roles can sometimes be strenuous, and therefore they can cause stress. Now, a certain amount of role strain stress is appropriate and healthy because being able to figure out how to balance these sometimes competing roles helps you to mature not only as an individual but as a student, and as well as these other roles that you may occupy at the time. So there's some upsides, and then there's some sides that may not be so seemingly upsided, but it's okay. We'll help you work through that. Next slide. So as we think about the role strain and the varying developments that you go through in the process, we have this model by Gartner, and it's the graduate student development phase. So typically what we see is 3 phases. The first phase is where you're entering into the program. You're really trying to find out about the landscape of the institution, what type of things are supported. You're getting acquainted with your cohort and even students in cohort that precede you. And you might be very intimate at this time with your cohort members, your advisor, and perhaps your faculty. You might identify other types of support in terms of institutional support, such as career services or health services, or if you attend a school that has extracurricular activities, these types of things. You're really learning what we would call the cognitive map of the institution. Then as you move through to your second phase of development, you got the institution part down, you're navigating that as best you can with the support of your faculty, cohort, peers, you've solidified some relationships, and now you're mastering your coursework. So depending on the length of your program, this can take a year or a couple years. It really depends, and it also depends on the rigor of the work that you're tasked with during that time. So we typically think of like students in their first 6 months to the first year of the program as getting the introductory classes. You're not really taking like a advanced statistics class in your first year or your first 6 months, because we want you to have some mastery of other skill sets before we really shepherd you into those advanced courses. So again, in phase 2, you're looking at mastery of coursework. You may even have taken at this point your COMPS exams, or you're preparing for them. And this is what we think about in terms of scaffolding. So in the first level, you're really learning the cognitive map of the institution. You're building your support networks. You're getting allies. You're learning, where the support is and where it's not. In the second phase, you're, again, mastering your coursework. You're demonstrating that you have advanced skills. And from there, you're getting support from, again, faculty, other students, and possibly some mentors if you have connections in the field, but maybe not so much. In phase 3, we're looking at the final programmatic milestones. So in graduate student work, this typically involves thesis, capstone, dissertation, these maybe even internships, etc. And it is at this point that we notice students begin to fully transition from the student role into the professional role. Sometimes that happens in a positive way, and sometimes not so much. So when we think about the developmental phases, I usually assert that you can benefit from professional support at any one of these phases. So when I teach professional development course, or the first course students take, where they have to learn about ethics and APA and how to put their CV together, just really, really basic things. I always tell them, take this opportunity to join a professional association now so that you start to become familiar with the culture of the profession and what it looks like to be a professional, because we hope, and our mission and aim is to graduate you. Like, we're partnered with you in that process. If we accept you into our school, as many other schools, the main goal is to educate you and prepare you to be a professional post-graduation. And we do a pretty good job of that, but we don't always do the best job of showing you what a professional in the field looks like, because we're tasked with the coursework, we're tasked with being able to evaluate your level of competency, and once we've done that, our job is sort of done. But I like to think not so much. As an advisor, as a mentor, I think that I hope that many of my students will remain connected to me in some way or another. In many ways, that happens through professional associations. Next slide, please. So now that I've talked to you about sort of the what prepares you for professional associations, let's talk about what professional associations are. So we have a list of things here, but essentially it's an association or an organization within the career that prepares you to come together with other professionals, other opportunities for networking, ways to advance your career, ways to share knowledge, to exchange ideas, and remain healthy and vibrant within that particular career field. So as we can see, based on some of these lists here that I have, networking, collaboration, sharing ideas, representing interests of industry before federal, state, and local governments. Now, this is one that I think is just really important, and I'm always talking to my students about the importance of advocacy. So here in California, we have the California Psychological Association, and one day out of the year, California Psychological Association goes with students up to our to speak to legislators, about mental health issues. So it's a way to interface with people who will be signing documents that have direct impact on our field. So there's lots of opportunities for advocacy. And so if you're working with particular populations, or even if you have a perspective as a student, you're welcome into the room and into the conversation, and you can often offer a fresh perspective different than someone who's a seasoned career person. So this is another thing that I think many of our students don't often think about, and they want ways to participate in advocacy, and I think this is a perfect example of how to do that. Next slide. Okay, so here I have a few reasons why to join professional associations, and one of the best examples I can give is that in Los Angeles County, we have the Los Angeles County Psychological Association. And I have told my students, the benefits of joining that organization, mainly because when I was a student, I was able to serve on the board as a student representative. I had a full vote. I participated in a lot of events. And now they really didn't have this so much when I was a student, and so I won't say how long ago that was, but now they have a vibrant listserv, and what they allow students to do is actually recruit study participants for dissertation research. So I've had a number of my students join LA County Psychological Association and put on the listserv their recruitment flyer. And it is a very easy and supportive process. LACPA loves students. They want to help in any way they can. And it's another way to widen your net in terms of getting participants and even getting your research out there. So that's one that's not on the list, but I thought it was important to highlight. So the listserv in LACPA also disseminates a lot of different information. So they have something called the daily clips that they send out at the end of the day that summarizes relevant data to California mental health laws or things that might be hot button issues. Very informative. And again, as a student member, you have full access to this. You also have full access to their events. The fees are very, very reduced. For joining, they're reduced, and even in terms of participating in brown bags and conventions and continuing education seminars, you can often do that for free by volunteering. So we'll come back to volunteering in a bit. So there are other reasons for joining professional association, and again, you can find a great mentor there. You will be able to interface with people in the field. You'll learn a lot more about your profession as it applies to the clinical practice aspect or even the practical aspects of it. The coursework that you learn about in school, that's one aspect, but learning how to really be the professional in the field is something that I can't stress enough. Next slide, please. Okay, so how to participate in the professional associations as a student. So what you want to do first and foremost is, talk to some people to find out what might be a good fit for you. I will talk about American Psychological Association shortly, but we have so many specialties in the field of psychology, and we have so many fields that we teach here at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology that you're bound to find something that you're interested in. An example that I use is that when I was in graduate school, I decided that I wanted to learn about clinical hypnosis. So I researched it. I found that they had a an association for clinical hypnosis. There was a local chapter. I looked them up on the website, got their information, contacted them, sent in a copy of my student ID with my form, and lo and behold, I was accepted, you know, for the round fee of like $20 or something like that. So for a whole year, I went to classes, seminars, CEUs, brown bags to find out more about clinical hypnosis, and it was a really rewarding experience. So it's very easy, again, to join, but ask other people and try to get a little bit outside of your comfort zone, because you never know what you might find. So again, you want to become a student member. They'll ask you for your student ID, and there are ways to have fees waived and even reimbursed. So it's a pretty painless venture. All right. So then another thing that I want to talk about in terms of volunteering on a committee is that we have a fairly large international conference here in Southern California called the IVAT conference, and it's the Institute on Violence, Abuse, and Trauma. And a lot of our students either present there and volunteer, so they have their conference fees waived, and they are able to sit in on other sessions and get this wonderful information. And so they volunteer on committee work, they volunteer to sit in and proctor classes, and it's a great way to learn about professional conduct and even gain rich information about other domains. Next slide, please. Okay, so as we said earlier, professional associations exist in virtually every industry or discipline. So as a student, you'll find things that relate to you. You'll find you'll find things that relate to your specific domain or that might be a little ancillary. But again, I encourage you to find at least 2 or 3. Go to the conferences, look at the website, see what they're offering, because this is a perfect time to participate at low or no fee. Now, one of the examples of a specific student association is APAGS, and most of us are familiar with that. That's the American Psychological Association of Graduate Students. So you may have a national, international, national, or state association that has a graduate student or a student division that I would strongly encourage you to investigate as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so here I just listed a few of the professional association websites. APA has a directory of international and regional organizations of psychology, and it's quite exhaustive. So you can go to that website, you can download the PDF, and they also have direct links to the various associations. We're all familiar again with APA, and then for the states and districts I just listed here, California, Illinois, and District of Columbia. And what you might find is if you go to the state or district website, they might be able to link you to a local organization. So for example, we have California Psychological Association, but we also have Los Angeles County Psychological Association. So excuse me, those would be important to investigate as well, because you may not be able to travel to Sacramento, but you might be able to go, you know, somewhere that's within a 20-mile radius of where you live to benefit of some of the offerings. And so with that, I will conclude the formal portion of the presentation. and open it up to questions.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. Any questions? Feel free to either use the chat feature or we can unmute you. If you would like to state your question, just let us know. As I mentioned earlier, the session will be recorded, it is recorded, so then we will also upload the slides and the recording to the Career Services archive page in the next couple weeks here after we close out on all of the Career Development Week events. Any questions? I think the point about how reasonable organizations are at the student rate, and also the notion that sometimes when you volunteer you're able to attend very expensive conventions, conferences, and opportunities to really mingle with experts in the field is one that I think is so invaluable for folks to get at least comfortable early on. And it might feel a little out of comfort zone up front, but I think the outcome is so terrific that I think if more folks can find that little bit of time and the little bit of, whether it's $20 or $40, which is so discounted to become a member, the value is critical.
Yes, I agree. And I'll tell you another quick story about when I was a graduate student and participating with California Psychological Association. I attended their conference, and Joe White was a speaker, and I just thought the world of him and still do. And as we all know, he's part of our board of trustees. Yeah. And I attended his one of his sessions, and I sat sort of off to the corner and thought, okay, all the psychologists are up front and the students are supposed to sit over here at the little table. And it was so funny because he called on me during the session and asked for my opinion. And I was totally taken aback by the fact that he acknowledged me as a student, that he invited me into the conversation.
Wow.
And it was really inspiring, and I felt very welcomed by that. And to this day, I have a good relationship with him.
Oh, is that? And those are the kinds of things that you really can't get sometimes in another experience. I mean, how else would all of those things have come together so well? And I saw it on one of your slides where you talked about how a lot of professional associations are run by volunteer members, or maybe a couple of folks who are paid in the organization, but so often they're so grateful to have a student or a colleague, volunteer some time, and just kind of the exposure then that a person gets, whether it's just their own professional development or actually networking and kind of taking it to other levels, I think, again, invaluable.
Absolutely. And one of the other reasons that professional associations value students is because students are the lifeblood to the discipline. Right. So the earlier on we can welcome you into the fold, then the greater the chances of longevity and even getting the word out there to others. So believe me, it's important and imperative for you to join these associations, seek them out, find out what you like about them, what you don't like so much about them, and your voice will definitely be heard and appreciated.
Agreed. Excellent. Well, thank you. I don't see any questions that have come through online. We thank you all for joining us, and a great big round of applause, virtually at least, for Dr. Hill for spending so much time sharing wonderful information, and we look forward to getting maybe we can do another round at some of our future events and get more folks involved in the various professional organizations. We truly appreciate your time and expertise. Thank you very much for joining us in another series of Career Development Week, and hopefully we will see you at future sessions. Thank you, Dr. Hill.
Thank you.